Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Umayyad Caliphate Season 3 presented by Islamic History Exclusive. This season, we are discussing the years 96 to 105 AH. This is episode 3-7, Muhammad ibn Ali. We're going to start our story by talking about the events of 101 AH. In the previous episode, we mentioned how Yazid ibn Muhallab was imprisoned by the then Caliph Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. However, when Yazid ibn Muhallab heard that the Caliph was sick, he began planning his escape. Yazid ibn Muhallab knew that Yazid ibn Abdul Malik was going to succeed Umar ibn Abdul Aziz as the Umayyad Caliph. Yazid ibn Abdul Malik had a grudge against Yazid ibn Muhallab. Now here's why Yazid ibn Abdul Malik of Banu Umayyah hated Yazid ibn Muhallab. Back in 96 AH, Sulayman ibn Abdul Malik, that is Caliph Sulayman ibn Abdul Malik, he appointed Yazid ibn Muhallab to be governor of Iraq. We discussed this in the previous episode, back when a man named Salih ibn Abdurrahman was selected to be Iraq's treasurer. We also discussed how Salih ibn Abdurrahman was the one who prevented Yazid ibn Muhallab from embezzling funds. In episode 2 of this season, we discussed how now that he was governor of Iraq, Yazid ibn Muhallab retaliated against Hajjaj ibn Yusuf by torturing and killing some of the members of Hajjaj's family. Well, in actuality, Yazid ibn Muhallab ordered his treasurer, Salih ibn Abdurrahman, to carry this punishment out. This was all done in retaliation for Hajjaj ibn Yusuf killing Salih ibn Abdurrahman's brother back when Hajjaj was the governor of Iraq. Now, one of those people who were tortured was Hajjaj ibn Yusuf's niece, Hajjaj. Hajjaj was Yazid ibn Abdul Malik's wife, that is Yazid ibn Abdul Malik from Banu Umayyah. She was his wife and the mother of their son, Walid ibn Yazid. Yazid ibn Muhallab knew that Yazid ibn Abdul Malik wanted to get revenge for torturing his wife. In fact, it was known that Yazid ibn Abdul Malik had made a vow to cut off one of Yazid ibn Muhallab's limbs if he ever got the chance. So therefore, Yazid ibn Muhallab knew he had to get out of prison as quickly as possible. And this desire to escape became more urgent as it became evident that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz might die. Yazid ibn Muhallab put his plan to escape prison into action. He had his Mawali prepare camels for him and bring them near the prison. Then he snuck out of prison. I don't know how he was able to sneak out of prison so easily, but he snuck out of prison and met up with his Wali near a previously agreed upon place. The Mawali were accompanied by Yazid ibn Muhallab's wife, and from there he was able to make his escape. Now let's read an excerpt from Tariq al-Tabari about this quote from Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Read this quote from Tariq al-Tabari about a correspondence, an exchange of letters between Yazid ibn Muhallab and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He traveled for a while, and when he had gone a certain distance, he wrote to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz as follows: "By God, if I knew that you were going to live, I would not have left my place of confinement, but I do not trust Yazid ibn Abdul Malik." Umar exclaimed, "O God, if Yazid ibn Muhallab wishes evil on this community, ward off his evil deed and turn this hostile action back on his own neck." Now let's take some time to discuss the death of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz died in the year 102 AH in the month of Rajab, which roughly corresponds to 720 CE. Once again, we'll turn to Tariq al-Tabari and read about Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's death. Fatima, the wife of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, said, "He became extremely uncomfortable one night, and we stayed up with him. The next morning I instructed one of his servants, by the name of Marthid, saying, Marthid, stay with Amir al-Mu'mineen so that if he needs anything, we will be close at hand. Then we left, and our heads were throbbing because we had stayed up so late. At midday, I awoke and went to him, but I found Marthid sleeping outside of his room. I woke him up, saying, Marthid, who told you to leave? He said, the Caliph did. He said, Marthid, leave me, for by God, I see something that is neither human nor jinn. As I left, I heard him reciting this verse. That is the last abode, we appointed for those who desired not exorbitance in the earth nor corruption. The issue ultimate is to the God-fearing. Marthid said, when I re-entered the room, I found that he had turned his face towards the Qibla and closed his eyes. He was dead. May Allah have mercy on him. As we mentioned in previous episodes, according to at-Tabari, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was poisoned by members of Banu Umayyah. But we have to remember that at-Tabari was writing during the Abbasid era, and a lot of the stories that circulated back then were demonizing the Umayyads, which helped to justify the Abbasid reign and their usurpation of the Khilafat from the Umayyads. So I'm not saying that it's not true, I'm just saying keep these things in mind. Now, there are different reports regarding his age at the time of death, but most likely Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was in his late 30s, likely around 39 years old. We've previously discussed Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's lineage in the previous season, but just as a reminder, it might help to go through it again. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's father was Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan. Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan was the son of Marwan ibn Hakam, and Marwan ibn Hakam was the fourth Umayyad Caliph and the first from the Marwanid line. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's mother was named Layla bint Asim. Layla bint Asim was the daughter of Asim ibn Umar, and Asim ibn Umar was the son of Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's reign lasted for just over 2 years, but despite his short reign, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz had a major impact. We've already seen some of the righteous actions he did as a caliph, but we'll read through a few more, once again, coming from Tariq at-Tabari. Now, this first one is correspondence between Yazid ibn Muhallab and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz back when Yazid ibn Muhallab was still the governor of Khorasan. When Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became caliph, he wrote to Yazid ibn Muhallab as follows. Now then, Sulayman was one of God's servants upon whom God bestowed his blessing and then took him away. He designated me as his successor, and he designated Yazid ibn Abdul Malik, if he is still alive, to succeed me. The office that God has entrusted and allotted to me is not easily borne. Were it my desire to take many wives and acquire wealth, then the sums that he had already given me are greater than that attained by any of his creatures. But I fear, in connection with the office for which I have been chosen, a difficult reckoning and a painful questioning, except for whatever defense from trial God may grant me in his mercy. Those at our end have sworn the oath of allegiance, so now let those at your end do the same. After the latter had read it, Yazid said, I will not be one of his governors. Abu Uyayna asked, Why not? Yazid replied, This is not the way that members of his household have spoken in the past, and he does not intend to follow their example. Nevertheless, the soldiers swore the oath of allegiance after Yazid called on them to do so. He said, Omar then wrote to Yazid saying, Appoint someone as your representative in Khorasan and come to me. He designated his son, Makhlad, as his representative. Now here's another letter from Umar ibn Abdul Aziz to one of his officials named Sulayman ibn Abi Sari. Omar wrote to Sulayman ibn Abi Sari as follows, Establish inns in your land so that whenever a Muslim passes by, you will put him up for a day and a night and take care of his animals. If he is sick, provide him with hospitality for 2 days and 2 nights. And if he has used up all of his provisions and is unable to continue, supply him with whatever he needs to reach his homeland. When Sulayman received Omar's letter, the people of Samarkand said to him, Qutayba deceived us, defrauded us, and seized our land. But now that God has made justice and equity to triumph,